When you're chasing a big idea, it requires big thinking. And the opportunities, solutions, or creative ideas that we see available to us are limited by our own mind. I really want you to think about that. So today I'm going to share the one exercise that I literally use in my own life all the time to trick my own mind into thinking bigger. This is one that alone has led to new business ideas, more creative problem solving. It has literally grown my business and my life more than any one question. I've actually talked about it before, but it deserves its own episode because this has been such a game changer for me. And I can't wait to share more about the backstory and the power of this one question for your own life and how you can actually trick your mind into thinking bigger. Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in today. I have a short but sweet episode that I think is really going to be a game changer for you because I know it has been for me in my own business, in my own life. And I wanted to dedicate an entire episode to it because I've been in this season of planning for the new year. So every year in December, I go through a planning process to look at what worked in the previous year, obviously for this year it's 2019, and then look at what I want to change or implement and do differently in the coming year. And one of the most powerful exercises that I've used in this process over the last year has been the exercise that we lovingly refer to as unicorn brainstorming. So if you have been to a Powerhouse Women event, or there was actually another podcast episode I talked about it on, bonus points to you if you listened to that episode. But this exercise alone has led to some of the biggest breakthroughs in our business and even in my personal life. And I'm going to give you a little bit of the backstory behind it, and then we'll talk about how to use it in your own life. But I want you to think about something. So we walk through life with our mindset and the things that we see, the opportunities that we perceive, even just the creative solutions that we come up with are all limited by things that have happened in our past, sometimes by our failures. It's like we walk around and there's this almost like this little recorder inside each of us that takes notes of all the things that we experience and whether we liked that experience or not, whether that experience worked out for us or not, and starts to create these files of what we say we're capable of. And you see evidence of it all the time, just the power of the human mind and the human will to overcome experiences or opportunities that seem like they're insurmountable. It seems like you could never, ever do that. And then you'll find an example of someone who has. You think about like the 4-minute mile, like when the dude broke the 4-minute mile, everyone thought like your body would literally implode if you ever ran that fast. And then turns out it doesn't. And then as soon as he broke that barrier, then a lot of other people went on to break it too. And I noticed this with my own mind, and call it being a perfectionist, call it being, someone who was, I've really had to overcome this fear of failing or fear of not looking good, that I was never willing to take these big risks and big leaps or even dream really big if I couldn't see clearly that the outcome that I wanted was guaranteed. And then I was at it was like this retreat that was put on by Lululemon that they gathered 100 ambassadors from around the world and brought us to Whistler. It was like this beautiful week focused on actually dreaming bigger, actually taking a step back from our lives and from the things that we were focusing on. And sometimes you step back and it gives you the opportunity to look and see different things that you weren't seeing when you're in the day-to-day. So this week was so powerful for that reason alone. But the one exercise that I took out of it that has completely changed the game for me in the last year was this exercise that they called unicorn brainstorming. So I didn't come up with the name, although it's super creative. I wish I would have come up with it. But unicorn brainstorming is this way to use the way our mind is wired in our favor. So think back to what I was saying about, how there's all these different stimuli that we're exposed to on a daily basis. There is literally opportunity all around us that we either see or we don't see based on these filters that come from our past experiences or failures or successes that we've had. And our brain has to filter most of this out. Otherwise, it would literally implode. Like our brain would not be able to handle the amount of stimulation that comes from all of the information, the data happening all around us. So the way to harness the way that our brains are wired is to teach your brain to tap into and look for evidence for what we want in life. But what I noticed that I was doing is, like I was saying, I would only look at what I believed was possible, which again is based on my history, my background, my experiences in the past. And really for me, a lot of that was like cased in this fear of failure. So I would only set goals that I knew for sure I could achieve. I would only say that I was going to go after things if I knew with very little doubt that it was going to be successful. And it just made for a really small life. And I really want you to think about, if you're sitting there today and you really resonate with, the content on this podcast, or, if you've been to our events and you know what it feels like to have a big idea like burning inside of you, and you know what it feels like to really know that you're meant for more, but you find yourself hesitating to really fully step into that because of some fear or past experiences that are reinforcing the story of what's not possible or that you're not enough, then I think you're going to love this exercise just as much as I did. But I'm going to be honest, I struggled with it a little bit at first. Okay, so let me break down what this exercise is and how to use it, and then I'll share a little bit of really why it's been so powerful, and also why it was a struggle at first to really start to think bigger. So I look at it as like just this creative writing exercise. Unicorn brainstorming, obviously you can tell it's going to be like really fun and creative, but unicorn brainstorming is literally just answering the prompt of, wouldn't it be cool if? And I really want you to sit with that. Wouldn't it be cool if? So think about how different that is from the way most of us are taught to set goals. We typically are taught to set goals based on, okay, where have we been in the past and how do we want to incrementally move that forward? There's no creativity in that. It's all based on these files that we've accumulated, throughout our life about what is and isn't possible. And the problem is that those self-imposed limitations start to feel real. They start to feel like, oh, I'm not confident. I don't speak on stage. That's not something that I do. When really it was just this example that was made up by, maybe the first time you tried that, you got made fun of or it didn't go well. And then your mind kind of filed that away and said, okay, well, we don't do that anymore. So creative brainstorming, unicorn brainstorming is a way to totally step outside of what your mind thinks is possible or not, what you have evidence that you can achieve or not. And it literally just takes us back to being a kid where we could be completely creative, free from any of the barriers that we place on ourselves, and just answer the question, wouldn't it be cool? Like, wouldn't it be so cool if? And here's what they had us do at this retreat that I'm going to challenge you to do. And this is actually something that I will do, at least once a quarter, if not once a month in my own business. I will use this exercise if I am bumping up against a decision I have to make, or maybe a problem that I'm not really sure what the right solution is. I'll actually sit down with a blank piece of paper, write out, wouldn't it be cool if? And you can use this either for a specific issue that you want to do some creative thinking around, or just like in general. Let's say you're using this for planning your 2020. right? Planning what your year is going to look like for your life and for your business. So the only rule with unicorn brainstorming is that there are no rules. There's literally no limitations on this. And that is what was really tough for me as an adult who loves, to know that I'm playing by the rules and loves to know that, I'm following things to the letter. To be given something with so much freedom and creativity was actually challenging to my brain at first, because the first couple of things that I came up with when they gave us this exercise were kind of obvious, right? Wouldn't it be cool if our event sold out? Wouldn't it be cool if, Elliot and I got to take that trip? It was kind of things that were already on my radar. And that's why when I challenge people to do this exercise, I have them go either aim to come up with a list of, go way past what you think your mind can come up with, like 50. Come up with 50 answers to wouldn't it be cool if, or set a specific amount of time, like you're going to write for a full 15 minutes and see how many you come up with. But what I found happened is as soon as I got through all of the obvious ones, all of the things that, these weren't new thoughts. These were goals that I had already been thinking about or already been, had on some other list that I had made. Then I started to tap into the things that were more creative. And again, if there's no rules around this, you should literally have things on your wouldn't it be cool if list that are so outrageous they kind of make you laugh. Like you'd be embarrassed if someone stumbled across this piece of paper and saw all of your, your biggest, craziest dreams. And so that could be things like, wouldn't it be cool if we're looking at it more from like a business perspective, maybe it's, wouldn't it be cool if I worked half as many hours and made twice as much revenue in my business next year? And then you'll notice like what your mind wants to do is immediately start to tell you all the reasons why, yeah, but, or that's not possible, that's crazy. And you just set those aside and you keep going. Okay, wouldn't it be cool if I got to take my mom on that trip to Norway that we've been talking about for years? Like, what if we actually did that in 2020? Wouldn't it be cool if, you just keep going and going and going. You want to get to the point where they're just like so far-fetched that there's at least some on there that make you go, okay, that's probably not going to happen, right? Your mind has that automatic response. Things like maybe it's a celebrity that you want to meet or someone that you want to partner with in your business that you have no idea how that would happen, but you want to put those kind of big thinking ideas on this page. And here's why. So now I want to kind of wrap this up with why this practice is so, so powerful. Because I want you to think about, whatever response comes up when you write the really outrageous ones, especially really outrageous goals around maybe a level of income you want to achieve, a level of freedom or happiness that you want. If your mind immediately starts to tell you all the reasons why that's not possible for you, it's a clear indicator that we have some kind of block, some kind of barrier that's ultimately, whether we realize it or not, holding us back from having the kind of life that we want to have. And usually we start to tell ourselves things like, well, someday, I would like to have that someday. And it just always lives in this category of someday, versus putting it into reality and actually declaring it as something. Again, you're not saying like, I will X, Y, or Z. You're not saying that these are the things that absolutely without fail will happen. Tapping into the creativity actually accesses the most powerful part of our brain, which is the part that thinks creatively. It's the part that wants to find the answer when it's given a question. So instead of triggering the red flag of, if I were to say, okay, next year I'm going to, earn this much in revenue, or I'm going to, create this new business, and my mind immediately wants to find certainty, then I'm going to focus on the only certainty I have, which is my past experiences, my past failures. And that's ultimately going to have me see and experience more of that, versus being able to just play in the realm of creative thinking and actually leave space for my mind to come up with ideas that I haven't thought of before. What makes this even more possible, or more powerful rather, is when you actually start to voice some of these unicorn ideas to other people. And some of you have heard me share this story before. I did this exercise with a group at a business mastermind. It was like this weekend coming together with all different entrepreneurs, different industries. And there was a gentleman who, was this big fitness influencer. The guy looked like he had, it all together, like his business was going well. And he was having a lot of trouble thinking bigger. Like he was kind of like very comfortable with where he was at. Maybe some of you can relate. And he was having a lot of trouble thinking bigger. So we were doing this unicorn brainstorming exercise and everyone going around and just saying one thing out loud that fell into our wouldn't it be cool if zone. And we were doing it just to practice actually getting into that creative mindset and speaking it out loud, because you never know if you start to think bigger, think along the lines of things that you right now don't have evidence that could happen. If you start to share that type of, or those kind of ideas with people around you, you never know who might know the exact person to connect you to, or have a resource that could help you reach that goal. And that was exactly what happened in this situation where I was at this business mastermind and this guy was having so much trouble like thinking big. And finally we were like, come on, dude, like, wouldn't it be cool if like, what's something that would just, you think would be the coolest thing, like you would tell all your friends about, you wouldn't be able to believe it. He goes, okay, fine. Wouldn't it be cool if The Rock, like AKA Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, shared one of my workout videos? Like, wouldn't that be cool? And, like this, he kind of sat back and he was like, you could tell it was like a real stretch for him to think that big, because everything he came up with, his mind was like, nah, that would never happen. Oh, that's stupid. That's silly. And I kid you not, he said this out loud to a table full of maybe 10 or 12 of us. And at the end of the table, a gentleman said, hey, we actually know his PR people. Like, we know The Rock's PR people, meaning all of a sudden something that seemed like totally outrageous in the realm of could that ever happen? He was at least now like a degree or two away from possibly even making that connection. Now, whether or not that ever happened, I have no idea, or not, it doesn't actually matter, because right there, it taught us all a huge lesson. Number one, that if we had just been sitting around a table, and I want you to think about this in terms of like creating your next year. If we were all sitting around a table just discussing the same things that we already were thinking about on our own time, and like the things that we can easily see are within reach, it doesn't require us to grow. It doesn't require us to count on the support of others. And it doesn't require us to come up with new ideas that we haven't already thought of. So even if this kind of exercise is really confronting to you, and if your mind seriously has a challenge with it, this is quite possibly one of the most powerful things you could do for yourself and for your business heading into a new year, is to take some time, get a blank sheet of paper, and just sit there with the question of, or the prompt, wouldn't it be cool if? And you know that we're going to hold you accountable. We want you to plug into the Facebook community. We want you to share some of your wouldn't it be cool if ideas, because you never know. You never know what could happen once you start to declare those for yourself and just allow your mind to think bigger and start to speak them into reality. Because we always get to choose. We can choose whether we believe that our limitations are true, or we can believe that anything is possible if we just have the right conversations with the right people and allow others to support us. So I know which world I would rather live in, and I'm practicing this every day. So I would love you to hold me accountable, and I will do the same for you. Plug into the Facebook group and share your unicorn ideas with the group. And I cannot wait to hear what you are planning and what would be really cool in your next year.